All right, looks like we are live back on Facebook. Sorry, guys. We are having connectivity issues with the platform that we use.
Stupid. Is it Verizon? Is it Comcast? Who do you got?
I don't think it's that. I think it's actually Restream.
Apologize for the connectivity issues. Let us know in the chat room if you've got us back here. James is in there. We're back.
Give it a second for people to get in there. Apologize, guys. It's having some connectivity issues and
The computer's got
COVID. Yeah,
Computer's got COVID.
It's coughing and hacking up a lot of things over here. Sorry, guys. Unpopular facts. Fire Greg Roman. That's where we were at. We were talking about that.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Offensive line. Welcome back, guys. Again, sorry for the connectivity issues that we've got with the platform that we used to send this out to all of you guys. It just could not find you. Our internet was working just fine, but this program was struggling.
I don't know what's going on. All right, so back to what we were talking about. We've just gotten into the offensive line. I started talking about Hardball's pending contract extension, right? And kind of the wishy-washiness of the contract situation is Ozzie, Eric, Steve, all collectively sound like they want Hardball back, and Hardball wants to be back based on this statement. But if you're doing an extension, like, why hasn't it got done yet? Especially at a introductory, or a intro press conference like this, you would have thought that would have been the announcement: is, hey, I'm here and I'm going to be here for the next 3 to 4 years. So with that statement, it sounded kind of like wishy-washy to me.
Yeah, it's something that I just don't understand why they handled this the way that it's been handled. I think I get that there were a lot of factors, but if you put Roman on the hot seat, who is a guy that has one bad year, right? Because the entire time he's been here, this has been a trending up and top tier defense. He has one bad year, and all of a sudden you're letting him go. It's not conducive to what with John Hardball, that John Harbaugh's had a few bad years. He's had some years that have had some struggles with him. Not as bad, but this year he's had to overcome a lot of things. And I think to an extent he did okay with some of them, but clearly an 8-9 record says that you didn't do good with all of them. Right. And so I was a little surprised that this extension got worked out. And I'm curious on what this means for Lamar and Roman, and maybe that's part of the Lamar thing too. I just don't know. The whole fact that they are giving him this extension with all of the issues, I'm torn. There's no pressure on somebody that has already got a contract.
Again, the extension isn't official yet, so we'll see what happens with it. I'd be surprised if a deal doesn't get done. Again, if the Ravens were going to make a change with Hardball, they would have done it earlier in the offseason to not allow all these other teams to dive in and get the best head coach candidates first. I mean, we're seeing them drop like flies right now with other teams. So I think Hardball's here to stay. It's just a matter of, does the extension get done before the season? Does it get done at the end of the year? We'll kind of see. And it could be one of those, we're going to wait until the end of the year and we're going to see what happens this year. And if we see positive change, then we'll get that extension done.
Right.
But if not, so again, Hardball could be on that hot seat as well. So we'll see. And after seeing the Bengals get to the Super Bowl, I think there's a lot of things that we need to see improvement on with the Ravens to kind of keep up with the Joneses, right? I mean, literally the Bengals
keep up with the Burrows. I mean,
the Bengals went from a 2-win team 2 years ago, a 4-win team in Burrow's first year, which obviously he dealt with injuries and all that. He had the knee injury.
Right. We took him out.
And then into the Super Bowl and his first full season as a quarterback, right? So from bottom dweller to Super Bowl overnight, like that, essentially, with the Bengals, right?
It shows you it's personnel.
Yeah.
It's personnel and coaching. What do? They made the coaching change. They made the personnel changes.
Right.
And it worked. And that's even with the offensive line of theirs still having some struggles. Imagine if they get him some more protection,
right,
like they did this year. You shore up that offensive line even more. You're going to give him all day.
You know what's crazy, though?
Go ahead. Yep.
What the crazy part is, you don't hear anything talking about anybody from that organization going somewhere else. Because whoever's drafting, they should get a A+ right now for what they're doing. No one knocking on their doors. Is it because they're the Bengals? But someone's got to be credited over there.
Yes and no. I mean, the other side of that is, too, that all of their draft picks that they've had have been at the top of the board because they've been so bad for so long. So it's
but they're not the worst. Look at the Dolphins.
The Bengals have been, I mean, like I said, we just talked about a 2-win team and a 4-win team. So they've been in the top 10 picks for a while now until Burrow came in. And again, that nucleus of guys that they've all hit on them. The Jamar Chase, the Burrow, now T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, like that nucleus is young, super cheap right now. They got a ton of cap space, so they're only going to get better. And again, like I said last week, if they can put some resemblance of an offensive line in front of him through free agency and through the draft this year, that team is going to be ridiculous for the next few years until those contracts come up and they start going to play, roulette again with the salary cap like we are right now. But Sarah had posed the question, Sarah Ellison again, what are a few things you need to see improvement on with the Ravens to keep up with the Joneses? And her answers, I kind of agreed with pretty much all of her things. She said you have to continue to build that stout offensive line to protect Lamar, and I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, that's, again, the biggest difference maker.
Investment.
It's the biggest difference maker from MVP year to last year was the amount of protection he had, the confidence
100%.
level he had, and just his comfort in the pocket.
A healthy Ronnie Stanley this year, maybe we're talking differently.
Right. Yep. The other thing she made a point to say was you have to make sacks and getting to the quarterback and turnovers and emphasis is what I was talking about earlier. That has been the biggest lack, especially last year. Again, there was a lot of injuries, but that's been the biggest lack on the sack production for a while. Again, this goes back to Matt Judon when he was here, and again, Zadarius Smith when he was here. You bring in free agents like a Yannick Ngakoue, or you make a trade for Yannick Ngakoue. You bring in a guy like Justin Houston. All these pieces that you bring in to kind of shore that up and to get more production, you don't get the production that you expect. I think that they go hand in hand together.
The only thing that I would say when it comes to the turnover piece is there is part of me that says maybe over the past few years there's been too much emphasis on turnovers, the punching the ball out. We're making a big deal out of it, and turnovers are good. But if you're messing up the basics like tackling, that's your problem. It's not
that again comes back down to coaching. Wink Martindale was the leader of the bunch on that. And if he's like so back in the day,
but is that too much emphasis on turnovers? And you're talking about we needed to have more turnover. You need to put more emphasis on turnovers.
Well, no, the thing is, you got to let your players that have specialties specialize in those things. Marlon Humphrey has never been a guy to generate a lot of interceptions. He's a very good cornerback, and he will pass break.
He's a coverage guy. Yeah,
he's a coverage guy, but he doesn't get a lot of his turnovers through interceptions. It's always been punch, what's his fruit punch thing?
Yeah.
It's always been his thing. The problem was he did it at such a high level that year that everybody else on that team tried to mock him and tried to do the same thing. And sometimes, like you said, they lost the focus on the fundamental of tackling and wrapping people up, that it ended up resulting in big plays versus it even just being a tackle, yet alone a turnover. When back in the day, Peanut Tillman, right? Another guy who made his
Mr.
career on punch outs, right? You didn't see the Bears defense all convert to trying to do the same thing because it worked for Tillman, right? That's where Wink struggled to just kind of step in and be like, no, that's Marlon's thing. Get into position. If the play is there for you to make a turnover, make a turnover. If it's there for you to make a pass breakup, make the pass breakup. He was allowing these guys to kind of almost willy-nilly at kind of free range to be able to do a lot of things that Marlon does.
Which is what I'm saying is it's a broad statement that I know that she's making, right? But the idea that we need to put more emphasis on turnovers, that's where I'm saying, and it sounds like you kind of agree, it sounds like we probably almost put too much emphasis on turnovers, not getting back to the basics. So what you need to do, to your point, if I were to adjust anything, I would say back to basics, turnovers, but still turnover as much as possible.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you get back to basics, that's when Marlon used to do it. When somebody had him wrapped up, and he wasn't going anywhere, and Marlin came flying in, that's when they were happening. There was a few times where he got a man individually, but it happened a lot when somebody else had him wrapped up where he was trying to fight for that extra yard or something. Marlin comes in, punches it out. That works. But it can't be your first go-to.
To answer, I don't know whose question it was. Was it Josh? Did I miss the Roman talk already? Yeah, unfortunately, we talked about Roman and a lot of John's press conferences and some of the takeaways from that. But we had a connectivity issue. So there's probably 2 streams on whatever network you're on, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. It was in the first 30 minutes or 45 minutes of the show. So we did talk about it, but we'll probably, again, it's a weekly show. We got a lot of things to cover for the next couple of months.
We're going to have Drew and Ryan's opinions next week, too,
we'll have many Roman conversations from here on out.
Yeah.
But, man, all right. The last thing she said in this statement was, and I know it's not really a controllable, but injuries have to be minimized. And this goes back to the Steve Saunders conversation that we had earlier and retaining him. Honestly, I couldn't agree more. Like, I know sometimes injuries are just fluke, right? But to have it at this kind of a clip and with the guys that are so impactful, starting guys, right? It all kind of comes back to what are the Ravens doing differently than other organizations are doing?
Are they doing too much?
And I thought Sarah Ellison and Engraven actually brought this up last night in that Twitter space, and I thought it was a great point. What is one of the things that the Ravens are, what's the word I'm looking for, stand out differently than any other organization when it comes to player development and testing?
Oh, they have one of the toughest medical exams around.
Well, one of the toughest medical exams, and then one of the toughest, what do you call it? I can't draw on a blank right now. Oh my God. Before they allow them to play, they got to pass this test. It's a conditioning strength. The conditioning test, right? Everybody that's ever come here as a free agent has said the Ravens conditioning test is second to none in its difficultiness. Like, no other organization runs anybody as hard as they do. And now part of that plays into, I think, the success of the Ravens in the preseason. Like, the Ravens have always historically done really well in the preseason. I think that's because they're conditioned so well in training camp, way better than a lot of other teams are.
Right.
But does that play a part in...
Is that to the detriment of the team later on?
Is it running these guys too much, and is it putting too much emphasis in training camp that opens them up?
The fact that you lose 2 guys to the same injury before the season even starts, are you going too hard too early on guys that are veterans, right? I mean, JK, granted, you know what you had in JK. There was no reason to push JK until the season started.
Yeah.
Period. Same with Gus. And then to have it happen with Marcus, part of that is some of these guys, that's their mentality, and they get out there, they're going to give 110%, right? Every time that they do it, even during practice like you play, right? That's the thought process. But you've got to then, from a coaching standpoint, step back and go, hey, Marcus, you have your spot. It's okay.
Right.
Don't hurt. I can't afford you getting hurt. Get out there, give us your, your type of play, but don't be pushing yourself because we know what you can do.
And to that point, Marcus's injury was literally freak. It was just him changing his body and going from one direction to the next, and the ACL tore. There's got to be conversations going around with the equipment too. As much as I love Under Armour, if it's an Under Armour spike issue, these are things
are a bad problem.
These are things that you talk about analytics, right? There's people out there that watch all this stuff,
get paid to watch it all.
Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely something that needs to be under fire right now, because we cannot have this happen again. You can't be paying all this money for it to just sit on the sideline and sit in a rehab booth. And on both sides of the ball.
To Flock Nation's point, some of that shit is common sense.
Yeah,
some of it is. 100%. So, all right, before we kind of get into the NFL, and I know somebody asked if we talked about TB12. That'll be coming later on in the rundown section. But one of the things I think we got to just mention before we kind of talk the 2 winning teams. This has been some of the most entertaining playoff football that we have seen in years.
Absolutely. This is
almost every level of game.
This is what makes the NFL product so appealing to the masses. I mean, it's we always talk about like Thursday Night Football is such a shit show. They're always like shitty games, but we still, as football fans, we still tune in. We still watch, man. I'm telling you.
You still watch the Manning cast on Monday.
Every penny's worth through this entire playoffs.
Yes.
Every round, divisional round, conference championship round. And like I said, if the Super Bowl is half as good as the rest of this playoffs has been, it'll be worth it. It has been the best playoffs I think I've ever seen in recent years. I mean, obviously the Ravens winning the Super Bowl is what stands out the most, but just collectively, one of the most entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about this, right? When you look at just even the wild card round, right? The wild card round, you had 19-26. The Bills 17 or 47-17 win was the largest difference, and the Chiefs and Steelers, right? So maybe the first round you had some good games and some blowouts, but the blowouts were pretty much the ones that you fairly expected. After that, division round, all but one game was decided by 3 points, and the one that wasn't was decided by 6. So one score game all around on all those. And then the conference championship game, both of them literally come down to the last minute, last second type situation. One of them goes to overtime. And it was so great because I'm sitting there watching the Bengals game, right? That goes into overtime, and I'm hoping for the coin flip. I'm hoping it goes into Joe Burrow's hands and Pat Mahomes doesn't even get a shot, because then the whole conversation is sparked up again.
Yep.
And something will wind up happening, good or bad. But it doesn't. Mahomes gets it. Everybody in the stadium thinks it's over with. Then the interception.
Yeah. This game was crazy. I mean, both of these games were 2 blown leads, teams that had leads. The Chiefs were leading 21-3. It was a tale of 2 very different halves of football. The Chiefs scored 3 touchdowns on their first 3 drives, and I thought, oh, shit.
It was within the first 15 minutes or the first 10 minutes too.
They're going to run. It was in the first quarter and a half, but they were going to. Okay. I thought they were going to run the Bengals out of the gym. I mean, Bengals weren't doing anything on offense, and everything for the Chiefs was clicking. But what if I told you that would be the last points that the Chiefs scored was 23? The way that they started, that was going to be the last points that they
24.
scored. Oh yeah, right. They did have the 3 to tie it up at the very end. Sorry. But still, 3 points at the very end to tie it in that, 2.5 quarters, we'll say, of play.
Nothing.
The way that they started, nothing.
Shut down.
At home. Chiefs go 8 straight drives, including overtime, without points after scoring touchdowns in the first 3 drives, minus the field goal. The drive at the end of the first half with the pass to Hill inside the 5 was stopped. That was a big game-changing
that was a turning point in that game.
That was a very... it's an aggressive call, but we talk about with Hardball not making the right calls and all that stuff. I understand that they were winning 21-3 right there, and I think they were just trying to
not wanting to let off the gas.
They're trying to put their foot, keep their foot on the pedal. But man, you make that field goal there, you take those points, and this game could go very, very differently. The only thing I thought that the Bengals, I think that they need to change. The only thing that the Bengals were doing on offense that drove me bonkers was, we talk about predictability on offense, man. They just continually ran the ball on first down and passed the ball on second down. I was literally yelling at my TV. I'm like, why are they not changing it up here? The Chiefs are loading the box, all they continue to do is run with Mixon. Mixon's not really getting anywhere. And
did you change your mind after they started scoring?
They started scoring. They started moving the ball.
What did they do? They were loading the box, and Burrow was hitting the open man over the center.
On second and third down, though, that's my point. Is on first down there were plenty of opportunities.
Well, but no, in the third quarter, what they started doing was the Chiefs were loading the box like they did the first 2 quarters. Yeah. And what was Joe Burrow doing? He's finding the open man right there. It's across the middle. Boom, there it is. Yeah. Right. So they set them up, and some of those were on first downs, because I'm sitting there going, why isn't Joe Mixon run? I was listening to the first part of the game. I wasn't watching it. And then I wound up being able to watch the second half.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I'm like, why aren't they running the ball? My dad tells me they were really predictable in the first 2 quarters. But then you started seeing that work out. They brought Kansas City in and said, gotcha. It worked.
Yeah.
Right? That they made the adjustment when they needed to. It would have been nice to see it earlier for them, but they continue to do it to try to bait them, and they put it on the shoulders of their defense, and their defense stepped up.
Yeah. This team is built to last. Talking about the Bengals, they're going to be good for a long time. We mentioned drafting Burrow. We mentioned drafting Chase. Right?
McPherson.
I was going to say, the guy that goes under the radar that nobody seems to be talking enough about is this rookie kicker in McPherson.
Did you see the video of him that came out today?
No.
He's doing the cap challenge. They've got a cap sitting up in a rafter.
I saw that before, yeah.
He kicks it up, and I had never seen that before.
He said it took him, and he was very candid. He said it took him like 30, 35 attempts for it to actually happen.
Fucking impressive.
Still, yeah, it was insane. He got the
that's
Gatorade bottle.
Accuracy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But you guys also forgot to talk about the allegedly was a fumble on Mixon, but
yeah,
no one touched him, and he just let that ball go. You got to be secure on that. I know you're excited. You're in the moment of that game, getting that first down, running the clock down, thinking that you're going to win this game. But you got to make sure that you've been touched.
Yeah.
Or here, luckily, they said that there was a whistle blown. So.
I was just saying the difference, but see, even still, the argument to that is he gave himself up. When you give yourself up, like he stopped. That's giving yourself up. It's the same. It's
no different than a quarterback doing the same thing.
You've already touched the ground and given it up. It's the same equivalent.
But to the other side of that is when the Chiefs intercepted Burrow, they were offsides as well. So you could play both sides of that. There was a big play that changed the game for the Chiefs that didn't end up going, didn't end up working out for them because they didn't score on it. But big plays happen in those games, and it went both ways. Last time the Bengals played in a Super Bowl was 1988. I was 6, just so you know, Scott.
I was just born that year. And if it was early in '88, if it was the actual year '88 and not the season of '88,
that I'm not sure.
If it was the season of '88, I wasn't born yet. If it was the year, or I'm sorry, if it was the season of '88, I was born. If it was the '87 season and it happened in 1988, I wasn't born.
I'm interested to see what the fan base thinks. So let us know in the chat room. Like one of the things that fans were talking about on social media you got fans that are on both sides of this. You got fans that were kind of pulling for the Bengals, right, to win. And then you got fans that are like, I cannot cheer for a rival. I cannot cheer for a division rival. And I understand both sides of it. I'm actually normally on the I can't cheer for a rival side. But like I said to you guys earlier prior to the show, I haven't built that hatred towards Burrow yet. There's something about him that I actually kind of like, but I'll say this. I had that same vibe about Mahomes when he first came to the league. I think it was just because he was so electric. He was so entertaining to watch. Different. But then he just became a douchebag, and he's got the whole douchery with his family and brother and wife and all that crap. I just cannot stand him now. So I fully expect to hate Burrow probably in another year or two. Especially when they rip our hearts out.
You're pulling a little bit in a sense for the underdog, because this was a team that, again, beginning of the season, I think we all said that we could see them. Like some of us were saying, okay, we could see them in fighting it out. They have the talent. The talent on paper was there,
right.
But could they make it translate? Well, they did, but a lot of the pundits said this isn't even going to be close. Why are we talking about? And here it is. This team's so you're kind of pulling for the underdog in a sense.
So to that point, right? Steven says 100% Bengals, but I root for the Eagles. But I can't for Yankees or Red Sox in baseball in the slightest. Baseball is just different for me than the NFL. Like baseball is more team and more organization than it is just the individuals, where I feel like football is more individual based.
The other thing about this too, right, with football is we will all say it when it comes to the Steelers, no matter who's the quarterback. We're going to say it when it comes to, because it's that natural rivalry.
Yeah, we've had that rival since we entered the division.
The Browns with the moving and stuff like that, there's a natural rivalry built in there. There's never really been a true, what my eyes I would call a true rivalry with the Bengals. It was always, oh, poor Bengals.
The only thing I've ever hated about the Bengals was fucking Andy Dalton. That's literally it. Again, this goes back to the end of history.
He was guaranteed loss for them every year, so it helped us.
Go ahead, James.
You do like Home Alone, right?
Yeah.
That's why you like Macaulay Culkin playing for the Bengals.
I saw the meme. It's pretty fucking funny. I don't know. I just haven't built it yet. Like I said, I'm sure in another year or two, especially if they keep winning like this and the Ravens can't keep up and that kind of thing, I'm going to hate them. But right now, I'm pulling for them.
Yeah.
Now, they're going to go to a Super Bowl, and they're going to be playing against the Rams. So
the home team. Literally, the home team.
The home team. Rams end up pulling this game off 20-17 over the 49ers. This game ended up being closer than I expected. Like I said, 49ers, a very physical team. They'll get after it. They're going to get after the quarterback. They're going to make you uncomfortable. You can never doubt Deebo Samuel, as Ryan says. Deebo is probably one of the best players, if not the best player on that field. He was effective in this game. He wasn't Deebo effective. I mean, he had I think he had 7 carries for 26 yards, 4 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown. They were going to need more out of Deebo if they were going to beat the Rams.
98 all-purpose yards. I mean, it's not a bad situation there, but I think, you look at the Rams, right, offensively left some desire to be wanted, right? Because you have 31 of 45 for 337 yards out of Matt Stafford, but 2 TDs and an interception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
2 TDs. You only won 20-17, 330 plus yards. That's a pretty damn good day. I would be expecting 3-4 TDs in that situation.
And he almost had another critical interception that the dude dropped.
Yep.
And he was like devastated over.
And that's why I'm saying, like, it was there was a lot left to be desired out of the Rams in that situation. So it's gonna be interesting to see them kind of go at it. But
I feel good for Matt Stafford. Both him and Sean McVay kind of get the monkeys off their back, essentially. Rams had lost 6 in a row to the 49ers prior to this win, so McVay's been itching to get it, and what a better way to do it than in the fucking NFC Championship, right? But Matt Stafford, we've all seen the arm talent. We've all seen what he's been able to do in Detroit over the years as far as the yardage goes, the touchdowns go. But it's been Detroit, right? That place is just cursed. It's just a terribly ran organization.
Yeah.
To see him come in his first year in L.A. under a guy like Sean McVay and do the things that he's done, and you get a guy like in midseason like Odell Beckham, who a lot of us had kind of written off as like, well, he's not Odell Beckham that he was in New York. Those days are gone. Well, Odell Beckham is still a damn good wide receiver, and the problem wasn't Odell in Cleveland. The problem was Cleveland and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
I think that was critical in this game. I mean, he had 9 catches for 113 yards in this game, on top of the best wide receiver in the game,
Cooper Kupp. Yeah, I mean, Kupp had 11 receptions, 142 yards, 2 TDs, and that other one that could have been another TD that he wound up dropping.
Yes.
On the long pass would have been interesting, because that would have changed my thought.
He'd have had over 200 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns in this game if he'd have caught that pass, because he was gone.
He's been impressive, an impressive guy to watch. Another thing, when you talk about this team, is something that Drew has been on, is this defensive front, right? You have the rally calls from Aaron Donald in this game.
Oh, that was awesome. And seeing him on the sideline, rallying the troops, getting in everybody's ears, saying basically, I need all you got for this drive. I need all you got for this last quarter, because you see the importance of it and what it means to him.
Well, and the genius behind some of the things that the Rams did in this offseason, right? Even in season, I should say. The OBJ move wound up working out. Well, I'll tell you another one that worked out in this game. Eric Weddle, coming back, being retired for 2 years, comes back, coming off the couch, looked in good shape because he led this team in tackles.
Did you hear what he did?
I did not.
No.
They said this whole season he was playing pickup basketball games.
Really? So it's funny. He looked slender. He looked like he had lost a little bit of muscle mass, but he looked quicker to me, which is kind of crazy. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he said he played basketball.
It's that Yonda effect.
right. But to come off the couch after sitting on, for 2 years, couch, obviously he's playing basketball, keep himself in shape.
No ice cream, probably.
No ice cream, cutting back on that. But to come in and lead the team in tackles in an NFC Championship game, and Eric Weddle is the ultimate teammate. He's the ultimate competitor, whether, he still has it or not. He's going to give you everything that he's got, and he did that in this game. So,
by the way, how excited is Shell and Tell Nation?
Yeah, man. Pretty exciting to see Jake Funk in his first year. end up going to the Super Bowl. Keandre Jones, a little less known Terp. He was a guy we got in the transfer portal. He's on the Bengals, headed to the Super Bowl. Should have been 3. Antoine Brooks, who was also a safety for the Terps, was on the Rams roster and got released right before the championship game.
Whichever one wins,
he'll get one though.
I'm gonna need a Shell and Tell interview episode with that guy.
We will make that happen. We will try to make that happen anyway.
Yeah, right.
But man, this is setting up to be a super entertaining Super Bowl. You got again the Bengals going into LA, and the LA's
SoFi
having that
Stadium.
true home field. Although I will say this, I don't feel like that LA fan base has fully embraced this Rams team, because there were a lot of fucking 49er fans there.
There were, but did you see the prices?
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. Like the cheapest thing is like $5,000.
Oh, yeah, $5,000 for a nosebleed last row section.
Cheapest thing.
It was crazy. I'm sitting there going, "What the hell?" I get it's the Super Bowl. I get it, but seriously, $5,000?
Right.
Like, plus you're gonna have to, if you're from Cincinnati, you got to pay for the damn flight and hotel, and shit's expensive in LA.
Right.
Like, do you want anybody to come to this game? Like, it's going to be interesting for sure. You're going to be discounting tickets to get people there.
Well, we got to talk about the game. Let us know in the chat room how you think this Super Bowl is going to shake out.
No predictions.
We've got 2 weeks. We got 2 weeks before the game, so we'll give our predictions. But I'd like to see kind of where you guys, your head's at, what you're thinking, because, again, this is going to be super entertaining. You've got the young guy in Burrow who is lighting things up. You got the old vet finally making it, and still got a shit ton left in the tank in Matt Stafford. You got 2 young coaches going after each other. Again, you got defensive superstar and Aaron Donald, probably one of the best defensive players of this generation. You got Jalen Ramsey, one of the best cornerbacks in this generation. And the Bengals, like I said, they just loaded with skill position talent, man. When you've got a guy like Jamar Chase, right? I know we talk all this shit about Cooper Kupp and how good he is, and OBJ is going to do big things. Well, I know Jalen Ramsey's on the other side of that field, but Jamar Chase, again, has played in an all-pro level as a rookie.
Yeah,
this is not going to be a walk in the park for Jalen Ramsey at all.
No. And that's going to be the thing, is seeing these high-flying offenses. I think, honestly, this is going to be a game of whose defense is better, whose defense can hold up better. Prior to that game against the Chiefs, if you told me that it came down to the 2 of them, I'd probably be leaning more in the favor of the Rams with the way they've played defense most of the year. But the way that they handled Mahomes, I think they take some of that and translate it and handle Herbert.
Stafford.
Or not Stafford, sorry. Not Stafford. So I'm looking at, I just saw something with the Chargers on it, so that's what made me think of Herbert. But no, they can handle Stafford, right? I'm curious to see how this works out. This game could go one way or the other.
It could.
I think it could come down to a coin flip.
The only thing that I think favors the Rams, a couple things that I think favor the Rams. One, obviously being at home, so the comfort of playing in your home stadium. 2, again, the talent level that they have on the defensive side of the ball, on the line and in the secondary. And then the other part about this is the injury that the Bengals took in this last game. Losing a guy like C.J. Uzomah,
the tight end,
their tight end over the middle is big. I know they've got weapons at wide receiver, and T. Higgins is a bigger wide receiver. He's 6'4", right? And he plays a lot of his pass catching over the middle. So I think that helps. But Uzomah had worked his way into a pretty predominant role in that offense. And not having that guy, if they do blanket coverage on Jamar Chase and they say, we're not going to let this guy single-handedly beat us. With an Uzomah in the lineup, you got Uzomah, you've got fucking Boyd, you've got Higgins. I still feel okay about the chances for Cincinnati, but not having Uzomah and having it fall a lot on Higgins and Boyd is a big ask. I'm not saying they can't get it done, and what you might see Joe Mixon involved more out of the backfield as a receiving threat, which he is a very good receiving back. You might see his targets tick up a little bit in this game. But I think it's going to be a close game.
The other thing that I think plays a factor, right, is it's not as though you don't have a tight end. Drew Sample can come in and can can help out a little bit. He did actually earlier in the year when Uzama was he wasn't getting as many reps because he didn't look good earlier in the year. Something clicked with him mid-season, and he's just been unstoppable ever since.
Right.
But I think, you can't underrate Drew Sample. He can catch the ball. He can have some good blocks, but it's going to be
Uzama, though.
No, he's not Uzama. I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying you can't also discount what this offense has been able to do all season, or almost all season long. Right. So I think you got to take that into account. It's also a Rams team that they held the Ravens, but the Ravens defense, the way that the Ravens defense was structured, was able to hold them to 20 points.
Yeah.
Right. This is going to be an interesting game.
It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be what the playoffs have been.
Yes.
I can't see a way. James, correct me if I'm wrong, man. What do you see happening in this game? I can't see this being a blowout one way or the other.
It could be a blowout both ways.
Okay. Tell me how.
Because their offense is like Cooper Kupp, OBJ, and then you also have Cam Akers coming out of the backfield. You got Sony Michel, Higbee.
Yeah.
And
Higbee's dealing with a little bit of an injury himself,
and the other guy, Braxton or whatever, the other tight end. The offense on both sides could be really good. But then if you look at the Rams, they can be really good on defense by getting to Burrow with Darnold just eating them up.
Don't forget Von Miller too.
I know that, and that's what I'm saying. It could be an explosive game, or it could be like the Rams are going to just take it. If that offensive line cannot stand up to that pass rush and stuff.
But tell me how you see it the opposite way. So you just sold me on the potential of a blowout for the Rams. Can you sell me on the potential of a blowout for the Bengals?
They got too many weapons if they could get the ball out.
Okay.
Like, their wide receiver core, like, I trust any of them to throw the ball to. It's not like I only got one suspect, number one. They got like 3 to 4. Because they could also put, Pearson in, or the other running back,
Pirine.
Pirine. Yeah, Samaje Pirine.
When he starts carrying, he goes right down the middle. Like,
he's a good pass catching back as well. Pirine is.
So
Pirine, that's where he has a lot of his touches. He's been getting them out of the back. He's been getting them on catches.
This could be an explosive game, but if that defensive line can get in there, it could be over.
So the only negative I see to the Rams, or I'm sorry, to the Bengals on defense, right, is going to be the secondary. Eli Apple. He's been a bit of burnt toast this year. I mean, he's had flashes where he's done good. It was kind of an up and down.
Which Eli Apple you're going to get?
Yeah, you don't know what kind of Eli Apple you're going to get. The only thing I'll give the Bengals credit for is they can create a lot of pressure. They got a lot of guys that not a lot of people know their names and who they are and whatnot, but they do create a lot of pressure, and they got to Garoppolo a lot, or not Garoppolo, to Mahomes a lot in this game. Mahomes was running for his life, back and forth, trying to create plays. I had never seen him create as many plays with his legs as he did in this game. I mean, I know Mahomes is
they had 4 sacks,
pretty mobile guy, and they didn't get those sacks until later on in the game. Once the pressure started coming on Mahomes, where he had to start throwing the ball down the field, that's when those sacks came. So if they can get to Matt Stafford early and get him rattled, and to your point, James, with all the weapons that they have, that's how I see that potentially being a blowout.
The only other thing to just throw out there against Mahomes, right? They also had 5 pass deflections in that game,
right?
So your secondary, not only is your front getting to the quarterback, but your secondary is playing close enough coverage to have 5 pass deflections in the game. It's pretty decent.
And then another thing real quick is for the defense and offense is who had the Bengals going to the Super Bowl? So they have nothing to lose anyways. So they're going to just put it out there.
It's all out on the table for them.
Like,
exactly.
Do we see Burrow crossing his legs, smoking a cigar at the end of the day like he did at LSU?
I
very
think so.
well could be. Did you see the picture? I think James even shared it, where it's his lineman that was lifting him up at LSU and then turned around, lifting him up, after that game. So,
well, Joe Burrow wants. Joe Burrow gets some in Cincinnati right now.
Well, we're going to talk more about this. As we said, it's 2 weeks prior, so we got one more week. So next Tuesday, we'll have a full house in studio. We'll give all our predictions. We want to get all your predictions next week. So
stay tuned.
Make sure you stay tuned for that.
Wrong button.
I'm trying to get out of here. All right,
We
Scott.
ended the show that quick? Damn.
Man, it's been a minute since I've been in the studio. My shit's off a little bit.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
That shit earlier fucked me up, man, when the internet went out and everything. So again, we apologize for that.
Apologize, guys. So glad I see a lot of you guys came back. But this week, Liquor Stop Brew of the Week, social media shout out. We've been seeing a lot of you guys in there. I've seen Steven, Unpopular Facts, David Missler, bunch of people. Did you have a list over there, James?
Yeah.
What do you got?
List. We actually got more people to start commenting after the glitch. So that's good and bad. But Stevens was number one. We had Chuck, Dimitri, Nick, Sherry, David, Amit, Ricky, Blank Space, Jimmy, Unpopular Fact, Fact Nation, Foxy 23, Joshua, Hunter, Jack, Jacob, and Craig Zero. And then Craig Zero actually put out, did you get his Twitter comment or his question or whatever? So he asked about that.
Did you get it?
I did get it. I will. I'll bring it up now.
Yeah, what do we got?
So let's see here. Give me a second. I gotta get back to mine instead of being on the show's version. All right, here we go. Where's he at? Here it is. So Craig said, can't deny or confirm this happening right now, but the Ravens organization, Giro out, Harb stays. Or I'm sorry, Lamar says Giro's out, Harb says Giro stays. So I guess he's saying, is it Lamar? Is this part of the issue? Is that Lamar wants him out?
I'm going to say this. If Lamar wanted Greg Roman out, he'd be gone. There's no way the Ravens would risk upsetting your franchise quarterback and pissing him off and potentially, especially in a contract year, and sending him elsewhere, or going into the season with a bad attitude. Now he's playing quarterback for a guy that he doesn't want to play quarterback for. I think if there was truth to that, if Lamar wanted that to happen, it will happen, or it would have happened by now.
But real quick, also, I want to point out, with all the shit that's going on, do you think there could be a holdout with Lamar?
There could be. So this reminds me a lot of Joe Flacco when Flacco kind of bet on himself in his contract year. Lamar is coming. We don't know what the number is, right? All we heard was Kadri Ishmael say that the Ravens put an offer out there. It was generational wealth type of thing, blah, 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 blah. Well, generational wealth could be $20 million. We don't know what that number is, right? Generational wealth could be anything for us.
Kadri played with a salary cap was $50 million cheaper than it is now.
Well, a lot, probably even less than that.
Yeah, exactly. My whole point is to him, generational wealth is a lot different than what it used to be.
Right. So we don't know what that number is. My thing is, Lamar could be in a position where he's like, all right, based on my year right now,
Craig,
having the injury, not knowing what's coming back, I might be getting $40 million a year. Or if I come out with a healthy team, healthy offensive line, more weapons, another year under my belt, I could make another run at MVP and potentially put myself in that $45 to $47 million a year and maybe get a couple more years on my contract. So I think Lamar is betting on himself. If he did turn this contract down, it's either he's betting on himself and he's going to see how he does this year, or the contract wasn't as wealthy as we think it is based on what Kadri said.
And Craig, no, we didn't get it. That's the only one that we got from you that I can find. So, but yeah, I think it's when it comes to that contract with him, there's a lot of different factors going in here, and regardless of whether it was generational wealth or not, to me, he's looking for his future, and why would I want to risk my future if you're not willing to protect me?
Right.
I think that's what this comes down to, and maybe some of it's scheme, and he's fine, but he's flourished under Greg Roman to this point.
Well, talk about what Jerry and the crew hooked us up with this week. This IPA is actually really good.
So this is from Sly Fox Brewing Company. It's actually out of Pottstown, PA, so not very far, about an hour and a half drive for us. Probably a lot closer for you. This is their Haze of Future Past. I thought that was a really good name considering Mike McDonald coming Future Past, right?
I like it.
So this is a hazy IPA. I would describe this one as it's IPA-esque, but it's not it's not hop heavy, right? There's a citrus undertone to it. Some of the IPAs, and you guys have heard us talked about them, some of the IPAs can be a little bit hoppy, and it's like, I've got mine over halfway down at this point. It's a pretty good hazy IPA.
It's definitely really good. I'm not a huge hazy IPA fan. This one doesn't give me that, like, dry mouth. You know, like some IPAs give you that dry mouth, and they do that so that you continually pick it up and keep drinking and drinking and drinking and buy more and buy more.
Right,
cottonmouth.
6% alcohol, by the way.
6% alcohol, so it's a little bit stronger than your traditional beer. It's good. So make sure you get up to Liquor Stop. Tell them Birdland BS and the crew sent you. Get your 10% off.
One more thing. It wasn't cold, so sorry, Fred.
No, it wasn't cold.
But
lemonade
they also got
always
this
be cold.
This is a new one that they got in too.
So should
this
every other drink, except for hot chocolate,
Jesus Christ,
hot tea, those things.
Anyway,
and sake.
this was another thing they just recently got in, and I actually really like it. I liked the one that we had that was a strawberry lemonade.
Yeah,
it's the Natural Light flavored vodkas. This one's their new black cherry. It's 4 times distilled, 60 proof. It's actually, granted, it wasn't cold, but it was pretty good.
It was still very good.
It was still pretty good because you get that like tart cherry flavor followed by the lemon. There's a little bit of sour with lemon. Really good. So head up to Liquor Stop, 1510 Conowingo Road. Tell them Birdland BS sent you. Get your 10% off.
Hey, I got the button right.
Hey.
All right, guys. It's time for the rundown. So for you guys out there, before we do the rundown real quick, for you Terp fans out there, like I said, Ryan is in Great Wolf Lodge right now with the kids on a vacation. Next week, we are going to do a special segment of Shell and Tell. We're actually going to do, we're going to have Ahmed on the show. There's a lot of news going around right now at the Terps. Some good news and unfortunately some hoodwinked bad news that we heard right before we went live today that we'll catch you up on next week. Again, Ahmed Gafir, at Gafir the Turtle on Twitter, will be joining us live.
Going to be on Birdland BS?
On Birdland BS.
Tune in, guys. There you go.
So make sure you stay tuned for that. But rundown. We talked a little bit about this in the pre-show. The NFL head coaching and front office carousel continues around the NFL.
Yep.
The Raiders start the moving on process. We know all the issues that they've had this year, hiring a couple of Patriots. So if you're going to go and rob a organization, I think robbing the Patriots is probably a good way to do that. Former director of player personnel Dave Ziegler will be their new GM. And offensive coordinator Josh McDaniel finalized the deal to make him their new head coach. This is a guy, obviously, who failed as a head coach out in Denver, but that was many years ago now. Came back to New England, did his good things there. Maybe he learned a lot again, learning under Bill Belichick. We'll see what happens there.
Colts for a day.
He did sign for the Colts for a day. Yeah, talk about being hoodwinked. So they have pieces there with the Raiders. Needs to put in his creativity, I think, in the office and inject the Patriot discipline that they have, obviously. I think it's good change for them. A couple of logical and bold moves for Mark Davis, which is rare.
Better put their damn foot down out there is what they better do.
Take the cars away.
No more driving after games. How about everybody has an Uber home?
Well, the Giants officially start a new era of football as well with a cleaning house kind of approach. Also stealing from an AFC East team. They've hired Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll as their new head coach and Bill assistant GM Joe Shane is their next GM. Again, another organization that's had a lot of success recently, has done really well with in-season trades, free agency trades, and free agency signings and through the draft.
Take from the rich to feed the poor.
That's right. The Giants needed to do something there to save face. That's been
because they are poor.
It's been a rough go ever since Eli has not been there. Nathaniel Hackett's the new head ball coach in Denver.
Who?
Exactly. If you don't know the name, that's former offensive coordinator of the Packers, which one Aaron Rodgers is pretty fond of.
You mean the guy that Matt LaFleur took the offensive play calling away from?
Exactly. But Aaron Rodgers pretty fond of this guy to the point he has said in the past that he would potentially follow Hackett if he went elsewhere.
Aaron to Denver.
Could we see
we
a
would
Manning?
Never have guessed that.
Could we see a Manning 2.0 in Denver happening?
John Elway's not there anymore. It's quite possible.
It's very possible. Staying in the NFC North, Matt Nagy era is over in Chicago. Now it's the Matt Eberflus show.
Who?
Exactly. He was the defensive coordinator for the Colts previously.
None of these are the names that you would have thought. Like, not one of them.
Well, there were a lot of names talked about, just not household names that you would have known.
Right, but none of the household names have made a landing anywhere yet.
Right. Well, one of the guys that was a big name on the market right now is it was the first hire. Eberflus was the first hire for new GM Ryan Poles, who was the Chiefs executive director of player personnel previously. Right. A lot of glowing reviews about this guy. Was a former player.
Knows talent.
For the Bears. So this kind of whole thing full circle for him to be from a player to a GM role is pretty impressive. In the wake of the Mike Macdonald coming back to the Ravens news, well, rumors have Jim Harbaugh, we talked about this for plenty of weeks now, potentially landing in Minnesota to be the Vikings' next head coach. Interview scheduled for tomorrow. So that could potentially be happening. Not a whole lot of candidate names out there, so I think this makes a lot of sense.
Just gonna throw it out there. He could, I could see him making his way down to New Orleans. And
you got
coaching up some talent down there.
You got the Dolphins, the Saints, the Texans, the Jaguars, and the Vikings still sorting through those options. But I think the Vikings, out of those teams, are probably the most set up for success right away.
He knows how to play in cold weather.
Right.
Simple as that.
Exactly.
Look, end of eras in the NFL. We talked about Ben Roethlisberger announcing his retirement.
Yep.
Well, now the GOAT, Tom Brady, called it a career today, this morning, actually, on Instagram. Took to Instagram, put an Instagram post out.
There was that whole back and forth of, I'm retired. No, I'm not retired. Yeah, I am.
We'll see what tomorrow brings.
Right, exactly.
This could be a whole Favre 2.0 at this point. But yeah, it's hard to think of a league without him. I think some of the things that he was saying, right, the family stuff, you know, his kids are like 8, 9, 10 years old, somewhere around in that mark. Like that's, I think about my son. My son's hitting like baseball and hitting sports. And so it, you know, kind of want to be there for him, right?
Yeah,
I was hoping to be able to go with you guys. Prime example, I was hoping to go with you guys to Top Golf this weekend to celebrate Ryan's birthday. I know, apparently it's freezing cold and crazy.
It's colder than a witch's tit.
And the heaters didn't work very well, so whatever. But either way, same thing. For me, my son had baseball, and to me right now, it's important to be with him through that and let him experience it. It's been great for me to experience it with him, so it's been awesome. So that's what I think, I kind of feel for Tom in that sense. Now, I'm not as old as he is. Somehow, neither are the two of you.
Nope.
I'm close.
Yeah, you're the closest.
You are definitely the closest.
But look,
Give me that trophy.
It's hard to think of this league without him. I mean, he's been in the league for 22 years. I mean, when Tom Brady started, we all were either just finishing high school or just entering middle school.
I just finished high school.
Yeah,
I was out of high school.
Yeah. Well, you had just finished a year or so before that, right?
A couple years.
20. All right, whatever. Anyway, all right. So, but look, when you look at everything that he's done, and I know that we've got a 2-minute warning questions is going to get into a piece about him, but look at everything that he brought to the table. 7-time Super Bowl champion, 5-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time NFL MVP, 15-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, NFL all-time passing TD leader, 624. The next closest guy behind him has been retired for 2 years. Okay? It's crazy. NFL all passing yard leader, 85,520 passing yards. That's
I thought
crazy.
for sure he was going to hit 100,000. I thought he was going to play till he was like 50, and he was going to hit 100,000.
At least 90.
It's insane.
2 more years. Come
insane.
on. Hit 90,000. And then most career wins, 243. He has a career winning percentage of like 76 or 77. It's like 76.7%.
He is the epitome of the word GOAT. He is the greatest of all time.
At his position.
At his position as an NFL quarterback. All
Uh-oh.
right. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it in the after hours. I know everybody's going to be going back and forth on this. But, some of us like to dabble a bit in gambling here. Some of us like cards. Some of us like sports betting. Well,
I mean, all of us like sports betting.
Some are better than others at it. I'm just saying, whatever.
Some do it more often than others.
Well, let me tell you.
Bet on anything that James has said this year, because apparently
just this year, though. Just this year, not previous years.
Spot on.
Well, in one of the most impressive sports bets I've ever seen, a man is now $579,000 richer off of a $20 bet.
Bet of the decade.
This guy made what's called an exact score parlay bet on the 2 conference championship games, meaning he guessed both final scores exact on the nose,
and the winner.
They both had to hit exact in order for this bet to pay out. And because they both hit, his $20,000 bet was
a $20 bet.
What did I say? 200?
Yeah,
You said $20,000 bet.
Because his $20 bet paid him $579,000 and $20.
For those of you that like are odds people, that was plus 2.895 million.
Yeah.
That's the odds of this happening.
This has super strong Biff Tannen vibes on this one. For those that are old enough to get that reference, Back to the Future, the Sports Almanac.
Whose DeLorean did he steal?
Yeah. I just it's unreal to do that on the nose. There were a couple other people that posted like their bets, and there was one other guy that had the scores right on both, but had the winners reversed, so it paid him nothing.
My cousin made a $10. I mean, it wasn't crazy, but my cousin made a $10 bet that the Bengals Chiefs game would go to overtime. He won $160, right? Not bad, right? But this guy
won $400, so I'm good.
This guy put in $20 and won $500,000.
I need a couple extra zeros to add to mine, though.
I mean, that's one of those bets, though. Like, if that's a bet that like one of us or Ryan might make. It's like, hey, you know what? Let me throw even $10 down on that. It's
right.
You're still getting $250,000 on a $10 bet in that situation. So it's one of those. I got $20 to throw away. Let's just see what happens. If I get it, great. If I don't, no big deal.
$20, yeah.
Right? It's $20. I'm not out a lot. So that's what this guy did, and good to him, it worked out. So crazy. But look, we don't talk very much about tennis.
No, hardly at all.
But tennis is kind of for a few reasons is kind of really taken into the sports world over the past week and a half, really the past month, I'll call it. In the world of tennis, you had number one Novak Djokovic, right? Like him or hate him. I do follow tennis. I like him. A lot of people hate him.
I played in college.
Jesus Christ. Djokovic was not present for the Australian Open. And I don't know if you remember, but a few weeks back, we actually mentioned this in one of our rundowns.
Yep.
It was his COVID status, right? Yep. He had a medical exemption for not having it. Australia, as a country, was not letting him in, regardless of that. He did all the steps that they wanted him to do. They still wouldn't let him in, so he wasn't allowed to do it. Wasn't allowed to do it. So that allowed, and again, he's number one. That allowed his fierce rival and number 5 in the world, Rafael Nadal, we all know that name.
Yep.
Very good guy. He makes a run. And without the Serbian in his way, the Spaniard made it to the finals again, where he immediately went down 2 sets. And everybody's going, here you go. He's going to lose it.
Right.
He comes back and rallies 5 straight sets.
Wow.
To win. Crazy part about this. Imagine this. We talk about some of these games, like we talk about the length of baseball game, right? 3 hours. Oh, that's a lot, right? Guess how long this match was?
I don't even want to know.
5.5 hours.
Oh, my God.
And this is one guy. This isn't a guy like you can substitute guys in. This is one guy going at it for 5.5 hours. Or 2 guys, I should say, going at it for 5.5 hours.
That's longer than a round of golf with you and I. And we're really bad at golf.
Not as bad as Ryan. But
wow, why way to throw Ryan under the bus? Neither one of us are that good.
He'll admit it. We're not Ryan bad.
That's a long-ass time to be out of the tennis court.
Right. But that's the crazy part. And he is now a 2-time Australian Open champ. And his win moved him into first place all time in Grand Slam title wins. I was getting ready to say,
I knew that they were close.
So this really plays a part of it. Him, Djokovic, and Roger Federer were all tied at 20. This put him over the edge. He is now the all-time Grand Slam leader. Now, for those that don't follow tennis a lot but grew up in the 80s and 90s, let me throw through names at you and where they were. Andre Agassi.
David.
Remember Andre Agassi?
I loved Andre Agassi. Yeah. Him and Pete Sampras, great rivalry.
He had 8.
Wow.
Okay. Pete Sampras, 14.
Wow. Yeah, that was like, not that I've ever been an avid tennis watcher, but that's when I watched it. And those 2 guys were like head and heels above everybody else.
It was those 2 guys. It was McEnroe and what he brought. Like, he was in a latter part of his career. Yeah. But those were the names.
I was never a McEnroe guy. That guy annoyed me.
Those were the names that we heard, right? Yeah. And even on the female circuit, what's her face that worked with Brady Anderson for a long time?
Sharapova.
Yeah.
Maria Sharapova.
No. God, what was it? She's from Baltimore.
Wasn't it Sharapova?
No, it wasn't Sharapova.
Pam Shriver.
Pam Shriver. Thank you. Yes.
You're right. Yep.
Shriver, because she used to do the thing with Cal and with
down
Brady
at the arena.
Down at the arena. Yeah. So you hear some of those names. That just goes to show you these three men have done a lot. And when I say these three men, I'm talking about Federer, about Novak, and about Rafael Nadal. Between the three of them, 61 Grand Slam titles between three guys.
It's insane.
And they're all like 34, 35.
That's absolutely insane.
So in 15 years, these guys have amassed more titles than some of the greats that we remember.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, the 2-minute warning, we're going to push those off to the after hours only because we don't have it set up in this new format.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't want to screw anything up.
That.
So we got 2 good 2-minute warning questions that we're going to open up for discussion, but we'll do that in the after hours. Again, thank you for your patience with us, for all the connectivity issues with the breakup in the show. It's been a fun one. It's been a lot of information. We'll have everybody back next week in studio. And again, a big special edition of Shell and Tell with Ahmed Kafir.
Yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week as you always do. Make sure you follow us on our website, www.birdlandbs.com. While you're there, you can get yourself some Birdland BS gear. I've got my hat on. James has got his hat on.
I've got a hat on.
Fred's got a hat on.
Always got a hat on.
Get yourself some gear.
Hey, I'm working on some really cool hats. We'll see what happens.
Check out all the episodes while you're there. Make sure you also follow us on Big Play. All of our social media accounts at BirdlandBS is how you find us, guys. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, share while you're there. Share all of the content that we put out there. We're trying to continue to grow. We try to continue to evolve content. This everything you're seeing over the next few months is gonna change, and we're trying to upgrade for you. So we appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week. This week for Fred, James, myself, Drew, and Ryan, who are both enjoying mini vacations. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
It's last call for alcohol. That was different.
It's time for the after party. I had it backward. You had to wait before me. God, everything's so fucked up right now. The show, what a shit show.
Oh, man.
All right, so we did have a couple of questions lined up for the 2-minute warning, but due to some of the connectivity issues, I didn't want to screw that up.
Yeah. And we changed our format a little bit, so that's part of the reason, too.
Long story, but I don't want to get into that. But so I'm going to open this up. 2 minutes means nothing. This is just discussion amongst the three of us and everybody out there. I want to get your guys' opinion. Tom Brady obviously is well respected for everything that he's done in the NFL, and a lot of people, just like I did earlier, refer to him as the GOAT. Somebody had asked on Twitter earlier, was saying, is he the greatest athlete of all time? And here's the thing. He's not the greatest athlete of all time. He's not a very good athlete. You think of athletes, you think of Bruce Jenner, like guys that were like actual athletes that could do multiple things, right? Now, Tom Brady's got baseball and football, but he's just not.
He still needs to challenge Lamar in a rollerblade race.
Right. He's not very athletic. So the way I wanted to reword this, is Tom Brady the greatest sports icon of all time? So take the athletics out of it. Think of his impact that he's had on the game, what he's done in the game, the championships, everything that we know about Tom Brady, and compare that to some of the greatest of other sports, the Michael Phelps of the world, right? And all that, what he did with all his gold medals, the Bruce Jenner of the world, the Michael Jordan, the LeBron James,
Speaking of Olympics, Shaun White.
Right, Shaun White, exactly. All the baseball greats that have been out there. I mean, we could go through countless amounts of them. Hockey, and Wayne Gretzky, what Alex Ovechkin's doing and him chasing him, right? You think of all these greats. Who is Tom Brady the greatest sports icon of all time?
I would say
Ali. That's a good one. Yep.
I would say because of some of the controversy, no.
Because there's a question mark with the cheating and stuff.
Yes,
there's multiple.
Is Tom Brady one of the top sports icons of all time? Yes.
That's too general. I'm asking you: is he the greatest?
No, then no.
Is your answer no?
Because there's
who would you put above him? If you had to say who is the greatest sports icon of all time, you have to name one. Who is your greatest sports icon of all time, and why is it not Tom Brady?
If you need to think, you can come to me.
Go ahead, James. If you got it,
I think I know who yours is anyway.
I love Tom Brady. I think he's great. I don't think he's the GOAT. And the reason why is football is a team game. All right. That's number one. It's not, you can't really control a football game compared to basketball. Jordan can control the game because he has the ball in his hand at all times. If he wanted
so does
to.
a quarterback in the offense.
If he wanted to, like, he can not pass it all and just score every time. But with Tom Brady, he's got multiple asterisks tied to him. Deflategate, Spygate, the Tuck rule. The game was changed because of him. I think Joe Montana is ahead of him because he played in an era where there was physical contact with the wide receivers. They played.
You could hit the quarterback anytime you wanted.
You could hit the quarterback or whatever, but don't get me wrong. Tom Brady did what he did, and he played the career that he did because of the rules that were changed for him. I respect him. I think he's a great competitor. I will always put him on my team, but I think Joe Montana has it for me in football. But MJ is the GOAT of all time because
you're saying MJ is the biggest sports icon of all time.
Icon of everything. But like I said, Tom Brady, great guy. I love when he went to Tampa. He changed my whole opinion of him. But there's a lot of questions. He won 2 Super Bowls because of a kick. He won 1 Super Bowl because of a head coach that couldn't, win to prevent defense and shit changed for his offense. I'm talking about the Atlanta Falcons. He lost twice to Eli Face. So it all questions all can come up to me. And then a couple games were stopped because of a defensive play. If you give the ball to or the running back,
yeah, no, I know.
It changes.
You don't have to justify it.
Changed, but he's a great quarterback. But me as a quarterback is Joe Montana what he did.
But here's my question to you on that. So the Joe Montana thing. The only reason you have Joe Montana ahead of Tom Brady is because of the asterisks with the questionable, cheating and scandals and all that stuff. Is that the only reason?
And the rule changes. The Tom Brady rules, the Tuck rule, that was a fumble. That was a clearly fumble that they messed up on.
Right. But that's one play.
And that's what everybody talks about.
But that's one play that changed football.
Yes, I understand
and
that.
And then him getting his ACL tore changed the whole thing about the
By the way, Tuck rule happened this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
Stafford.
Saw it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Go ahead, Scott.
So, kind of thinking about it more. I can see the argument of MJ, and here's why I say that. If you were talking about the greatest American
and Chuck
sports athlete of all time, I would say MJ. MJ turned basketball and the NBA into an international level. Mm-hmm. Without Michael Jordan, that doesn't happen. We've seen that. We've heard that. Many of the greats have said the game is not what it is today and grew to what it was because of Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. That argument's there. But I think if you're going to talk greatest sports icons of all time, I think you have to look globally. And I think you have to, look at guys, whether you like the sport or not. Soccer's put out a few of them.
Yeah.
Pele, one of the greatest. David Beckham, internationally known. I honestly think David Beckham helped American soccer grow in popularity.
I agree with that.
Along with that, Cristiano Ronaldo. This generation, and it is what it is.
Messi,
so there's 3. Messi, right? There's another one. So there's people that when you say great, I don't know how many Europeans, they might know Tom Brady from like the news, but I don't think they were actively going and watching. There's people around the world that follow Messi, Ronaldo, that followed Pele back in the day. We're talking international sports. I know that somebody mentioned Ali with the boxing, right? Mike is crazy, all the other shit that he went through. Mike Tyson, people argue.
That's what I was getting ready to say. So Chuck had actually stole my thunder a little bit on that. Is like, if you're not accounting for all
off the sport,
the asterisk related things, the off the field things, and all that bullshit. When you talk sports icons, I agree 100% with you. There's a lot of underappreciation in the United States for some of the impact that some of these soccer players have had globally. And I don't fully understand that, and I'll admit that because I'm not a big soccer guy, right? So, again, these are personal questions. This isn't like who actually is. This is who do you believe, right?
Everybody knows who the Ernest Jordan is. They have shoes.
Michael Jordan, for me, is everything that turned me on to basketball. Like, Michael Jordan was why I watched basketball. I had no interest in basketball until Michael Jordan came. And he had some off the field issues with the gambling and all that bullshit. But when it came to on the court, there wasn't a better leader. Gentlemen, there wasn't a better guy.
We've officially made it on YouTube. A sex bot has hit our YouTube
no
channel.
Sex bots.
No, that's what all these are. That's a sex bot. I just blocked it on YouTube, so we're good.
Anyway, Michael Jordan, like you said, and I think you painted the picture elegantly, like he transcended the NBA and put the NBA back on the map. You know, there's been a lot of NBA greats that have come along well before Michael Jordan's time, but nobody that made the sport grow more than Michael Jordan. LeBron James, Kobe Bryant don't exist without Michael 100%.
Jordan. Kobe admits that. I don't know that I've ever heard LeBron admit that, but Kobe admitted it. Kobe said, I wouldn't have been what I was without Michael.
Michael Jordan
did that.
Michael Jordan
earlier.
Michael Jordan and the growth that he had from a marketing standpoint, you know, him and Bo Jackson, the whole thing that they had with Nike and all that stuff. That shit got into the inner streets, right? And that's where the Kobe Bryants come from. That's where the LeBron James come from. That's where a lot of these inner city
guys
kids
imitating MJ. I mean,
100%.
The movie,
still to this day.
The movie Like Mike.
Still to this day. Yep, exactly. So for me, it is Michael Jordan. But to Chuck's point, man, again, if you take all the bullshit out of the negativity that is Mike Tyson, man, for that 10 years that he was, again, another person who brought interest for me into a sport that I was not interested in before. There were a lot of good boxers, especially in the heavyweight division before Mike Tyson, but again, another guy that just brought global interest to the sport, and the sport has never recovered since he left.
Here's another one I'm going to throw your way.
That's because he got too many belts. You know how many heavyweight belts
there is. And so another thing that, like, if we're talking global sports, and there's people that are going to argue it's not, but here's the deal. It's international. This person, you will, because you have a more working knowledge recent of, you know, wrestling. In the past 20 years, no bigger name in wrestling than Brock Lesnar, who then also made a piece in the UFC. Brock Lesnar has also transcended international, right? Or Undertaker, for that matter. Right, you're talking some of the.
I think The Rock is more bigger than.
I was going to say The Rock, Hulk Hogan, like these are guys that even before them set the stage for these guys to kind of come in, and I The Rock 100%, and what he's done even after. But
my whole point is with my statement is getting people to think a little bit broader spectrum, because we think about
the three key sports,
right, the three key American sports, right? But there's more outside of this world.
The other one I could go with here too, and again, you talk about controversy, is fucking Tiger Woods, and I only say that because bringing all the interest to the sport, golf, nobody fucking cared about golf until Tiger Woods came around, and the historic run that he was going on. You talk about like
half the golfers in golf today wouldn't be in golfing without Tiger Woods.
100%, and you talk about like the Pete Samprases of the world, and all these guys chasing this 20 number of fucking Grand Slams or whatever. Tiger Woods was chasing Jack Nicholson, and before the wheels fell off with his, off the course stuff and the injuries and all that shit, he was at a pace to not only beat it, but like far surpass it.
100%. And I'm going to throw another one your way because I just watched this actually just the other day, and I feel like I remember seeing it when it first came out on the Speed Channel, but I rewatched it. The documentary that they had about the day that Dale Earnhardt passed away in Daytona. Yeah, you talk about somebody that really elevated NASCAR, right? You could talk.
Jeff Gordon, he was winning every fucking year,
right? But you could talk about him. You could talk about Jeff Gordon.
Paved the way for Jeff Gordon.
And Richard Petty. But I'm saying like Jeff Gordon in the '90s and 2000, he was just winning everything.
He was the relatable guy for
Jimmy Johnson
people that
doesn't
weren't
get
originally.
the kind of credit that he deserves than the run that he went.
Tony
on.
Stewart.
Yeah, Tony Stewart was a little different of a story, but the championships that Jimmy Johnson won year after year after year, it just kind of fell under the radar. Nobody really gives him the respect. But anyway,
my whole point is there's more than just those that people need to take a step back and actually look and say, where do these? I think of the three main sports, I think it sounds like we're all in agreement that of the three main sports, the international market and the international impact that was Michael Jordan far surpasses anybody else.
And I think Jordan really put it on internationally when they did the Olympics. The dream team. People stepped it up. But I want to get into the second question that we had because it was a good conversation. Is do you guys think? And I'm talking about all pro sports Hall of Fame. Do you think there should be a waiting period of 5 years, or certain people should automatic be in? Like who would have thought like we're gonna be sitting in a room like should Peyton Manning get in, and coming to Tom Brady being what he has done? Are you thinking should he not be a first time ballot? He's an automatic a first time ballot. Like they shouldn't even like think about it. I think certain players in their sport, they shouldn't even have to wait. I think they should just let them retire and go in. I just wanted to know what your take was.
So I've thought a lot about this because this is something that I've brought up as well, and I think it's a good point. I don't think there should be a waiting period. I don't think, like, I've made the joke, like, Justin Tucker is the sure ballot Hall of Famer. He should be in the Hall of Fame now, blah, blah, blah. I don't really think active players should be in the Hall of Fame. Wait till the career is over, but to wait
the full body of work,
right? Until the full body of work is done. Yeah. Why wait however many years to allow a guy like Tom Brady, who we know again is going to be in the Hall of Fame, a Peyton Manning, as you said, we know he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. There doesn't need to be this long waiting period, but I think they do that out of respect for some of the lesser players. Like, so they only allow a certain amount of players in the Hall of Fame every year, right? And some of these guys that like are in their 80s or 70s and have been waiting to get into the Hall of Fame for years and for decades, and they're still hanging on to hope. Maybe they're, again, 70, 80 years old. They don't have a whole lot of years left. And if you get a class like a Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, all retiring at the same time, that holds up a year that somebody like that can get in, or a group of people like that can get in. So I think that's why they do it, sort of.
Here's my only counter argument to that. If they were that great, why didn't they get in the first place?
Yeah, I understand that, but the game has evolved. The game is different than what it was.
And I get that, but you start to diminish some of the, like, we talk about letting all these other, like, there's sometimes in some situations we've said that there's too many there's not a cutoff for what gets you in, right? Honestly, one of the things that I think you pick, if you're going to do, whether you do it by position, which I think is probably the way to do it, if you do it by position and you have a situation where somebody is quarterback, if you hold the top three when you retire, if you're one of the top three guys in all of history, automatic, auto-freaking-matic, right? Peyton and not Eli, but Tom should be in that period. In that theory, should be the next year.
I found out today. I didn't know this, but apparently, when you get in the Hall of Fame, like when you're eligible, someone has to like present you, and you have to give them reasons.
The arguments,
like you should just stay up as Peyton fucking Manning and then be done with
it. Scott Garceau for a long time has been the Ravens representative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He had to do Ray Lewis and all that, but you have to present them.
Yep.
And they just said last year they didn't get together. It was all virtual. They said it took 6 hours to do all of it.
And there are some that are going to be that case. But if I stood up and I said, Peyton Manning, good night. Like, I mean, you don't need to say anything for certain players. And that's where I think so Chuck had said, nope, it was cringy that Gretzky got early acceptance into the Hall of Fame. I think it's cringy only because they made an exception for one player. I think if they made the standard that, you know, every player could potentially get in, like, again, there are certain greats that you don't need to build a case for.
Kobe Bryant should have been like,
no brainer. But that's what I'm saying. Those greats also tend to set records, which is why I'm saying if you are the top 3, it's an automatic. So somebody comes along and in, I don't know, 8 years, 10 years, surpasses Brady's record. If you surpass somebody that holds a standing solid record at a position that's, you know, one of 3 records or something like that, if you surpass one of those records, it should be auto-freaking-matic.
Right.
Like, there's no vote. It's, hey,
I feel like the way you could do this, hold on. The way you could do this is you could have a certain number designation every year. So let's just say that number is 2 or 3 potential. Doesn't have to mean that it will be. 2 or 3 potential instant enrollees, right? That you build your class of Hall of Famers like you would normally do every year. You make everybody vote for who that they would have in and all that stuff. Keeping these 2 or 3 potentials on the side, right? Get your class together. Open those 3 up. And let's just say you had a Peyton Manning and Drew Brees on that list that retire the same year. You look at those 2 guys. Do those 2 guys outperform everybody that's in this class that you've already designated? If they do, they're automatically enrolled.
But how do you determine those 3 guys? That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's that year. It's that year of retirement. That's every year that a player retires. Every year that a player retires, they do that every year.
So you'd have to look at every player on the retirement list and then look at every player in the class.
Right.
It's 6 hours already.
I'm just saying. But I don't think that conversation would be long because it's not every year that you have multiple generational players that you know are going to be first ballot Hall of Famers. It doesn't happen every year.
I can't believe a reliever got 100% votes for baseball. Everybody being put in, except Ken Griffey didn't get 100% vote. That's crazy.
I was upset about that whole thing, but I can after years in here, I can understand how somebody might say he hurt himself by having the injuries later in his career.
That's what I'm saying. So he said it would be cool if there were a surefire candidate. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. You just every year you reserve 2 or 3 spots, whatever it is, for those potential early enrollees. And do they deserve enrollment over your class?
So what if you just did this? What if you gave everybody a list and said, do these people deserve early enrollment? And if they hit greater than 80%, if 8 out of 10 people are going, they deserve to be in here tomorrow. That's how you look at that list, not comparing to what these guys. You look at that list. If there's 5 guys here and there's 5 guys that you're looking at for your class, then there's 10 guys. Who gives a shit? You said there are 5 guys that retired this year that 80% of the people voting said abso-fucking-lutely. Then you do it.
Right.
Simple as that. And then you have your other people. No, that's where I think MLB gets it right by not having a limit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean,
but then it backfires and they only have one.
There are, Deion Sanders has been public about like certain players just they let anybody in, and it's watered down. It's not what it used to be. It doesn't mean what it did. Some of these players that do get in with the NFL, it's like, I don't know if they're Hall of Fame. They're really good. But
some of the guys, some of the older guys that are, some of the older offensive line. How do you measure that?
I know, and that's
the
is
hard part
because the game changes, it evolves, and stats don't always line up from different generations. Like it is a tough call. But my whole point
there is a way. Ultimately, we all agree there is a way that you can make this happen.
My whole point is there are certain players that right after they retired, they are 100% first ballot Hall of Famers, so they are going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Why not let them in year one versus having to wait the waiting period?
Question starts to become if you say, okay, guys, here's the list of players that are retiring. Who would you check off and say, would be a ballot Hall of Famer, and it doesn't take away from your vote over here?
it would be the unanimous guys. Like if you made it a vote, like you just said, was it Mariano Rivera? That
it was 100%.
100%.
Griffey, you probably would have said, everybody would have said Griffey, like he changed the game.
98% of the vote or better, you're going in your first year.
Yeah, if you have to think about it, then it's not a first-time Hall of Fame. Yeah. But the people posted like last week when it was all came out about Barry Bonds not making it. They were saying that the Giants just signed him for a contract.
Yeah, just to restart. I'd be open to that. I'd love to see that because I don't agree with the steroids and all that stuff. But again, we talked about this last week.
Dude.
That was the era. The MLB profited off of it and knew that they were profiting off of it. So go ahead, let them in, build your little fucking asterisk
MLB
division.
Always gets it fucking wrong. Dude.
I 100% agree. I like. That whole thing is just shitty to my opinion. You can't have the all-time leader in home runs not be in your Hall of Fame.
And now that MLB is adjusting to gambling, all that, you need to put Pete Rose in the fucking Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Pete Rose.
My point is if you're gonna allow any of those guys that have the asterisks because of steroids, you have to let Pete Rose in. Period.
But create that fucking sad.
Create that West Wing. Create that West Wing that anybody in this wing has question marks around whatever the career is. But it's all part of the game.
They either are or they aren't.
But the thing is,
don't separate it.
I'm just saying, if you wanted to, at least get them in.
And someone said it right. The thing about the Hall of Fame tells a story about eras of baseball history. And if you leave these out, like, you're missing a part of it.
Right.
You put Pete Rose in for what he did. Then when you go there, be like, oh, he's here, but there's a question about his gambling and all that. But that's a story right there.
You're telling me that Glavine and Maddox didn't do something to keep their arms up as long as they did at their age?
Yeah, right.
They did something. I
sad,
saw the video, the commercial of them when it was Mark McGwire, and they were like trying to pump iron and be there for all the girls. Great commercial back in the day.
All right, guys, we appreciate it. We're going to get out of here. We will see you next Tuesday, 7:30 Eastern Time, full studio in the house.
See you guys.